have a chat about their experiences of well, kind of more postnatal anxiety really, and depression, because as Natalie said, it isn't just kind of about depression or you know, anxiety, OCD. There's also kind of like lots of stuff around like eating disorders. Like I have an eating disorder that I'm still recovering from, and it went absolutely mental while I was pregnant with both times. So it's kind of getting all that out in the open. The Mums Wellbeing group started, I think, about 18 months ago, after my experiences of being quite depressed and being really lonely, and just, you know, you go to play groups and stuff, and it was all very like, you know, my hair's done, oh yes, I'm just breastfeeding little Jocasta, I've got my sitting on, and which is great if you can do that, that's absolutely amazing. And just thinking, oh my God, just do with some groups that you could go to where you can just be. You can just be whatever, and that's one of the things that we just say, you can come in whatever state that you're in. And it's just gone crazy, hasn't it? We've got like an online, like a closed group where mums, we are kind of focused on mums at the moment, can talk and share stuff, and it's, you know, really non-judgmental, very non-cliquey, really friendly, and the amount of the care and love that pours back, I'm always, and sometimes people don't even know each other, and they're like bearing their soul and saying, no, it's going to be okay. And we do have meetups as well during the week. We've got a meet-up on a Monday in quite a run-down church hall, and on a Friday, and we've also started doing like creative workshops. We did, which we're both involved with in some shape or form, weren't you? What workshops? Yeah. No, we did. I'm really interested in getting in there really early. So antenatal stuff is really important, and we're not kind of supported by, without getting too political, by a government that supports like early intervention stuff, and like we've mentioned attachment and things like that, and that's just so crucial. You know, that chance to be able to bond, and so we did like a creative workshop where we got pregnant mums. And some people were just about to literally give birth. Someone gave birth the day after, and someone came with like a 4-day-old baby. And we did, I don't know if anyone's heard of like Maternal Journal. It's an artist down south, and she's a midwife, and we actually came up with the same idea at the same time, but obviously she had the funding from the Arts Council. And I did a raffle. And just getting mums together, because we're all about kind of getting a mum village together, getting women together, to support each other. We've lost that, haven't we? We don't have neighbours that we can knock on anymore. Mums and dads are all over the place, you know, aunties, grandmas don't come round after you've had a baby and cook you a meal, and you're there, you know, an hour after your section making cups of tea and putting your makeup on, and so we've kind of lost that. So it's mum village, and we're really inclusive, so it's very much like no mum left behind, because that loneliness, that isolation of just thinking, oh my God, I am the worst person in the world, and no one is ever going to be as bad a mum as I am. And then you can go online and everybody's a bad mum, aren't they? Well, they're on the 3rd fruit shoot today. Fabulous. So there's that kind of, you know, no mum left behind, and also the mums matter, the can't pour from an empty cup. Love that phrase. I'm always having that one. That, yeah, actually look after yourself as well, because I remember, you know, when you go on the plane and they say, oh, put your oxygen mask on first and then sort your kids out. What's self, you bastard? Can you imagine that? Leaving your kid? But actually it's true, because if you're not feeling okay yourself, then you're in no fit state to be kind of giving lots of care, love and attention to a small child, or even bigger children. So that's where we're up to. We are on a long-going process of, we're a community interest company now, because in North Manchester there was nothing. There was literally like a CBT group for mums, which was fab, but once your year's gone, after your baby's a year, you're not part of perinatal mental health anymore, even though people were like 18 months, 2 years down the line, and it was massively to do with like birth trauma, or, you know, having like symptoms of PTSD, or just that day-to-day struggles of having a baby and a toddler. So we've plugged that gap. So we are a community interest company. We're chasing around trying to kind of get funding from the National Lottery. But it's all dependent on me on my one Thursday when the boys go to a childminder. And I'm like, sleep, house, you know, and so I try and get as much as I can done. We do have Jenny here as well from Snowdrops in Stockport, who is kind of like us in Stockport, but probably much better organised. I thought so. So we'll do a lot of stuff online. We do our meetups. We do creative stuff, but we're also really trying to raise awareness and smash stigma of and bang the drum of like mum's mental health. We're quite lucky in Prestwich, where we're from, that we've got quite a robust online community, which came out of the fact that the Tories have decimated our children's centres. When I first had my daughter, well, she's 6 now, I had 3 children's centres I could go to, I could drop in any time. There was different groups, you could always grab hold of a health visitor or a midwife, have a cry about, oh, how shit it all was, and all that kind of stuff. That's gone in my area. They've closed one down, and there's only really 1.5 going, and they're not on full timetables. That's all gone. So all the mums of Prestwich have really kind of got hold of that now, and we have like an online group, and there's lots of like baby yoga and baby sensory and baby mindfulness and all these different kind of book clubs, and that's plugged that gap. So we post a lot about kind of mum's mental health and that it's okay to say, and I think I've kind of gone really where I actually think it's quite normal for mums to give birth and not first time ever I saw, you know. they actually showed that at my antenatal thing, and I remember thinking, everybody's going to bond with a baby. There's so much pressure, isn't there, about how you're supposed to feel, what your perfect birth is supposed to be like, how you're supposed to have it all and go back to work and do all these things, and actually you find your own way. So our group is very much about, look, it's okay if you had a belly birth, it's okay if it came out the other way, it's okay if you breastfeed, you bottle feed, you do both, you pump, you sling carry, because there's a lot of, even though social media is fab, there's also a lot of kind of shaming and expectations, and you just have to go on Instagram. I think there's a woman at the moment, and fair play to her, who's just given birth and she's having a baby moon, and she's on this beautiful bed, and there's this platter of like fruits and smoked salmon, and she's blissfully breastfeeding. And like, I would have been surrounded by sick, there would have been like, you know, kind of muslin cloths and baby wipes. And I don't know if anyone's had children, but you kind of do this thing with your partner where you start swearing under your breath. You don't want the baby to hear it. So that would have been my Instagram thing. And fair play to that woman who had the platter. Do you know what I mean? We're not going to sign her off for it, only a little bit. So we're kind of wanting to bash the stigma and raise awareness. We want to get into like the early stuff and antenatal things. They are setting up perinatal mental health services around Manchester now. First cluster is up and running in South Manchester. The second one, is it you guys? Is it Stockport? I think it's it's Bolton and Wigan.
Yeah.
Then kind of Stockport, and then obviously Bury's last, obviously. So we're getting involved with them of trying to get mums' voices in there, because Natalie, you said about language.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You should read the proposals of what midwives and stuff are supposed to be saying to mums and dads. And originally I am a nurse, I know what perinatal mental health means, but your average person on the street, they're like, what the... And it's just another barrier, and trying to break it down so that mums and dads' voices are shaping the services, and that we're saying what's helpful, because it's not for a reason that most people don't come forward. You've got the shame and the stigma of not coming forward because you're supposed to be seen as being a good parent and you should be coping. But then also health visitor midwives and GPs, their response to that, we were talking about this before, it's crucial. So if they fob you off, then you're like, oh, what's this? I'm not right back.
And the idea of being assertive when you feel that vulnerable is kind of impossible.
Yeah, and to bare your soul, which is crazy in some ways, because if you broke your arm or your stitches split or something, you'd be straight down the doctors, wouldn't you? And you'd be taking medication. But so we definitely want to do all the early stuff, and also think about birth and motherhood in a much more normal everyday. That you are going to grieve for your past life and try and transition. If anyone gets a chance to see The Other Mother, it was at Manchester Art Gallery. It's moving to Oldham, is it now?
Yeah. Oldham, Macclesfield and Leeds.
Yeah. Get a chat all about the transition of kind of moving from being a woman
it's
to
identity based.
yeah, it's just so there's lots of kind of discussion now and normalising. So because I think some of the mums that we see, I feel that if early doors somebody had said, it's really normal to look at them sometimes and hate them. It's okay, you're tired. And then that gets stuck because there's no refute of that. And I think that festers, and then that means I'm a bad person, I'm a bad mother, and it grows from there. And also birth trauma is massive. You give birth in whatever way, you hit the ground running and you never have time to process and put together a story of what's happened. And I think a lot of what we do is people just being able to talk about, oh my God, this happened and that happened. And I think there's lots of research about trauma that if you can make a cohesive story, even if it's a horrendous story, that actually
narrative building is so important, isn't it? When you tell your birth story, the more times you tell it, the more times you speak those words out loud, somewhere it gets easier, you understand it better, the pieces fall into place. But you need a forum to be able to do that, because, you know, my husband experienced that with me and said, and afterwards, in the room afterwards, said to me, we're never doing this again. Even if you think you can do this again, I can't. And so he doesn't want to be the one to listen to that story over and over. Actually, he needs to do his own kind of narrative building about that. So you need some sort of outlet, and I'm pretty sure all of my friends at this stage are sick of hearing about it. But I think, yeah, it's really important. Sorry, I totally...
No, not at all. I'm kind of done, really. And I think it's just, just getting it out there. And we've got a lot of work to do with the Mums Voices stuff, with mental health services and the NHS, and it's finding the energy for that, because it's feeling a very defensive interface, because obviously the health visitors, midwives are doing a fantastic job, but I don't know whether you know, like, midwives only have 15 minutes for appointments, and they're being pushed to crush that. So how do you ask somebody about their mental health in 15 minutes when you're busy going, oh my God, or even before that, right, you're smoking it, right, how's your blood pressure, blah, 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 and kind of getting that as part of, like, okay, how's your blood pressure? And there is, you know, even in our breastfeed at the moment, we don't even have any antenatal classes, because the children's centres and the midwives are arguing about where they're going to have it, and we haven't since January last year. So there isn't even like a forum for women to get and then obviously to get together. So that's it. I'm just desperate to know what everybody's interest is. I mean, I don't know, before we kind of like speak to Nikki and Rachel, I just wanted to like see, because otherwise you're just going to be sat there going, yeah. If you don't want to, then that's absolutely fine, but it's just like, you know, because it isn't a two-way thing. It's kind of this side's talking. We know you're Sasha's mum. Mumming in action. Mumming in action, supporting her daughter. There you go. Model of good mothering.
I've worked in mental health services and alongside mental health services, and all of UCICs have got to change into charities, because the only organisation that benefits from the CIC is the Treasury. You have a much better chance of surviving if you're a charity because of the tax aspects of it. I haven't got any money to tax, though. I've had a bank account. How much is in it? If it does grow, change your government
we will.
It was just the easiest way. Yeah, I know. And the government has a vested interest in selling out. I think we were number 18 of the CICs when they were first created. And we learned the hard way.
Okay.
So my mission, apart from promoting good mental health, and then along with good mental health, is not ripping good people off by setting up the wrong governance structure.
Okay.
So I want Omar, are you taking this?
It's not good.
He needs to hear this too, because the same is true for us.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I've worked in mental health almost all of my professional career, and I absolutely acknowledge everything that you say, and it breaks my heart, because I think it could be possible for there to be much more collaboration and much more. The NHS could never possibly meet all of the needs. But with the 12 years now of austerity, it's just crumbling, and I left America because of the NHS. And I think most British people would fight to their last breath to keep the NHS. But it's just...
They're running it into the ground so that they can privatise it. I worked in mental health for a long time too, and and all the kind of supportive early services have all gone. So you get people in crisis, and we'll just kind of deal with crisis rather than deal with any. We'll just cut money now, and things like not investing in attachment and not investing in those early relationships. You're saving a fortune, because we know from research, I'm not saying that every mum who has a mental health problem ends up fucking up their child, that's not what I'm saying. But, you know, that early attachment stuff, those are, you know, kids who are born with trauma and have had to deal with trauma, are the ones that are going to be in prison, are the ones that are going to be struggling, are the ones that are going to be on drug and alcohol, the ones who are going to be, I'm not saying that your friend was, you know, kind of, but, you know, more likely to self-harm, more likely to kind of suicide, you know, struggle at school, struggle with behaviour things, and that's not being, it's not being investing because it's not important, well, it's not financially important, Anyway, right, sorry, I'm waffling. Well, anyone else want to say before we...
So I work as a CBT therapist in private practice.
Oh, cool.
I'd love to work in the NHS, but it's just... what it is, isn't it? And so I felt I could do my job better where I am. So I'm really interested in the whole area of ante and postnatal, and I'd love to set up a group that sort of marries what you guys do, the peer support, but with some therapy aspect to it as well. But I'm terrified because I've never run groups, so I've only ever done one-to-one stuff in the Heatons. So
You could have a chat.
yes, I know. I know. So Jackson,
There is in Bury they do the Time for You group, which is a CBT based.
Is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, and the women that come off that, it's really difficult because they exclude kind of anybody with any like trauma or stuff like that. It's purely kind of anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
But the main thing out of that is the fact that the women spend time together and an hour, say a week,
time for a brew,
where they've separated from their baby without feeling too guilty, and a lot of like women we know are friends, are friends from that. And whenever we get anybody, we try and signpost them, and then we'll put on, and loads of mums will come on and go, I went on it, it was amazing, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it's run with very healthy minds, but they struggle because they didn't promote it. It wasn't until we kind of came along that pushed it. They weren't promoting it, so they were going to close it because there was no numbers. And I was like, well, how come I'm getting we had 1 week we had nearly 30 women. I was like, how the hell are we, well that doesn't happen every week. How the hell have we got 30 women and you've got nobody on your, so Time for You. So if you give me your email address, I'll see if I can find the therapist who does it, and that might be.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. Good.
Anyone else? No? Okay, sorry, I don't want to prolong you. Because I know
it's okay, I thought there's only like 200 people. Like, really good.
So I think it's funny how we've put this last, isn't it? And I think that's a big thing for me as well, is that hearing from people who have gone through stuff, and we kind of do our PowerPoints and we do this and that, and actually this is what we should kind of begin with. And that's not a criticism, but it's kind of what we do, isn't it? We ease ourselves into it.
Kate, can you come to every event?
Yeah. I'm paid now. Got mouths to feed. My husband wants me to go back to work. This is my work. Sorry, go. I don't know who wants to start.
You can
go.
Let's go. Right, hi, I'm Rachel. I suffered from anxiety and depression and OCD since being a child, since as long as I can remember. And I've been medicated since 2012. I got pregnant and it coincided with us moving to Yorkshire away from all of my family and friends, so I didn't know anyone. And I went cold turkey off my medications. I was like, right, no, I don't want to do anything to hurt the baby. If I even take one pill, then the baby will die, because that's my train of thought all the time. about 5 weeks into the pregnancy, I started having these horrible intrusive thoughts, and it was like, you aren't grateful enough for being pregnant, you're going to have a miscarriage and it's going to be your fault. And it was just on and on and on in my head constantly. And then it got to like, when the baby's born, you're going to do something, you're going to accidentally fall down the stairs and the baby's going to die, and it would literally occupy my every waking thought. But I didn't tell anyone because I thought the social services would be waiting by the bedside once as soon as I give birth, and it was the social services, I still have it now, this obsession with social services. And so when I went for my first scan, I didn't actually think that I was going to see a baby there. I thought they were going to tell me, no, you've lost it, or you were never even pregnant in the first place, even though I did 10 pregnancy tests. So once I had that, and I got like momentary like reassurance that it was all alright, and then the next one hit, which was like the kicks. So I would count obsessively these kicks, and I would kept going to the hospital. It was every week saying, you just check the baby's alright. I've wasted so much NHS time, I feel awful for that. But it was an antenatal anxiety, and one of my anxieties was around the actual birth. So I had appointments with a senior midwife who was trying to write a specific birth plan, told the other midwives how I was feeling and to take special care. None of it works out that way. The birth was absolutely horrendous. Everything that went wrong could have gone wrong, and it was a really traumatic birth. And one of the things that sticks in my head is I didn't want to have a C-section, and they said to me, if you don't have a C-section, you are not doing what's best for the baby. And that line stuck in my head, and it still sticks in my head now. I'm not doing what's best for Isaac, which is my little boy, he's nearly 3 now. And nobody listened to what I wanted. They said, they shouted at me, said, you're not able to consent, you're in too much pain. And it was 7 days of awful emotional and physical pain. And months after that, I couldn't even talk about the birth because I would just well up in tears and start crying. I got checked by health visitors, like Kate said. 15 minutes they're in and out, aren't they? He said, how are you feeling? I said, and I wanted to say something, but I couldn't because I thought I was going to get my baby taken away from me. And then they were like, oh, it's just baby blues. So I thought, yeah, probably. I was away from everyone, like I said. We lived in Harrogate, so I didn't know anyone. I was on my own with a baby. My partner was working 12-hour days, so I was on my own with a baby day, sometimes night. And I was breastfeeding, so all the feeds would come down to me. Lots of times he would just sit and cry, and I would just sit and cry for hours and hours and hours. And I thought, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. So we moved back to Wigan, where I'm actually from, to be around the corner from my mum and dad. And they were like amazing, their support was amazing. But I didn't have any mother friends at all. I didn't have anyone to talk. My old friends had disappeared because I was only 24, so they 25, not 24. They assumed that I was going to go back straight into who I was before, go back to work, go out partying all the time, and I wasn't that person. But I didn't feel like I fit in with mums either, so I just didn't belong anywhere, and it was so isolating. All I remember is just feeling alone all the time. So I'd spend every day at my parents' house, and they would help me, and then I'd go home at night, and then partner would come home from work. So I couldn't be alone with my own child because I was worried that I'd do something to hurt him. I was worried that I'd break him. I used to sit up at night watching him breathing because I thought that if I went to sleep, that would make me a bad mum. So on the couple of hours I should have been sleeping, I wasn't. I was just watching him. But I still wouldn't go to the doctors. And then one day, I was at a routine appointment for him, for Isaac, and he was having a meltdown, and Kate's seen my son's meltdowns in action.
They're meltdowns, aren't they? Yeah. Nobody tantrums like a 2-year-old.
And I just broke down and said I need help, and the receptionist took me in the back and made me a brew and said, the doctor will see you right now. Which was great, it was really nice, but he just said antidepressants, that's it. In and out antidepressants, so I took the antidepressants and they still didn't help, and I didn't know why. So I moved to Prestwich and found Kate, and...
It's not just me, there's
no. The whole of the mum's wellbeing group, and like a lot of them have become best friends now. Isaac's growing up with their kids. The support there is absolutely incredible. You just go in. I was having a really bad week on Monday because it's up and down, isn't it? As you all probably know, it's up and down. So I was having a really bad week. Came in on Monday, burst into tears, and there were so many people like making me coffee, giving me biscuits, and just being there to talk, and it makes more difference than any pill or medication can do. I mean, I still take antidepressants. I'm not taking away from them, but the support from other mums and people who've been there and who understand what it's like is just, it's such a special service. It really is. So I'm a lot better now than I was. Isaac's growing up, he can do more things by himself, he's not completely dependent on me. but my partner's working, he's got a better job, so he's working 9 till 5 and he's home, because we live in Prestwich now, so we live close. So I'm getting multiple hours at home, I'm happy where I live, there's so many playgroups and stuff in Prestwich that we can go to. So I don't feel alone, whereas it was Mum Village that I needed all the time, I think. It was just that I needed.
Pluggy Boobs group.
Oh yeah, I'm also a project manager for Plug. So if any of you've got breastfeeding, family and friends, I'd post them to us.
Thank you.
I'm Nikki. I have suffered with anxiety a long time before I had a baby. So when I got pregnant, my first meeting with a midwife, I had a nice symbol written on the front of my notes that means at risk, probably should walk around on eggshells around this girl. So everywhere I went with these notes, there's this nice symbol that's on the front. And I don't think you're supposed to know what it is, except one of my best friends. And also one of my best friends is a midwife, so she was like, oh. Okay. And obviously whenever you go through the notes, there's more information about that. So that kind of like went with me from that first moment that I had any kind of contact with a health professional around my pregnancy. Because specifically anxiety that I have issues with, there is a tendency to catastrophize. So which I know that and I try to be wary of, but also it means that sometimes when you're not catastrophizing, those things aren't always picked up because you've got a nice little symbol on your notes that say like, oh, this girl might be overanalyzing. So I had a rough pregnancy. I was on crutches from 14 weeks. I had horrendous SPD. I could barely walk around. My last weeks of pregnancy, where you're supposed to be enjoying your like last bit of, I don't know, Netflix watching or whatever, I was at home head to toe covered in hives because I had polymorphic eruption. So I was scratching my own skin off, just willing this baby out of my body. And the whole way through, I kept thinking, but it's going to be all right because the baby's going to be born, and then, you know, it'll be worth it. And people would come up and go, oh, your skin looks awful. It's going to be worth it. It'll be worth it.
You could almost have a greeting card with that on.
Yeah. Like, oh, I know it's hard that you're on these crutches at the moment, but when the baby comes, it'll be worth it. So this kind of narrative of it'll be worth it, it'll be worth it, it'll be worth it. And I had very high expectations of what I would be like as a parent, what motherhood would mean for me. My mum has mental health problems, so her parenting of me when I was young isn't what I would want for my son. And so I had very high expectations around like, what is that going to look like for me? Like, am I gonna do these things that she did? Is this going to be difficult for me? And so I had this very high expectation coupled with this like, right, we just need to get to the birth. This pregnancy is horrific. We just need to get to the birth, and then it's going to be okay. We got to the birth. It was not okay. In fact, it couldn't have been much further from okay. We had a bad time. I remember I don't really remember a huge amount about the labour, but one of the things that really is burned into my brain is being run down a hospital corridor with a senior midwife riding on the bed with me, like you see on TV, waving a waiver in my face going, you need to sign this. And I was like, I don't know what I'm signing. She's like, it doesn't matter, if you don't sign this, your baby will die. Oh. What? So I was like, okay. Had a section, which for me, the same as you, that was like the point where I've been like, this is not what I want. This is exactly the opposite of the birth that I want. And that having a section represented for me everything that could be wrong about the birth experience. So even though I know that was the right thing at the right time and it was what needed to happen, it's still one of those things, you put up these signposts for yourself, don't you? Like these kind of milestones you want to hit. And that was really tricky for me. And when he was born, he was £10 10 ounces. So when they pulled him out, the first thing the consultant said was he's like a 3-month-old, sorry. And I was like, wow, okay, it's big. And then we sort of got whisked off to recovery. And anyone who's had a section will know that that feeling afterwards, like as the drugs leave your body, you're uncontrollably shaking. If you've gotten to that point where you've had an emergency section, you've been through something pretty emotional and physically draining to that point anyway. And so there's my husband crying his eyes out with this giant baby. And I was just like uncontrollably shaking. And I was saying, do you want to hold him? No, I can't feel anything. Like, so that wasn't the experience, the immediate experience that I wanted. So I was like, well, it's okay, because the baby's here now. So we've had this horrible pregnancy. It wasn't the pregnancy that I wanted, but it's okay, because, you know, the baby's here now, so it's all going to be worth it. And we had this horrible birth, this birth that we didn't want, but it's okay, because the baby's safe, and it's all going to be worth it. And then, so I'd hinged all of this experience then became about successfully breastfeeding my baby, who I wanted the very best things for, and we'd already failed. You know, there's like a triangle, isn't there, like, in those early days of being a mother, like carrying, birthing, feeding. I was like, right, we haven't really got this side, but it's okay, because we'll feed okay. We did not feed okay. So we were in hospital for 7 days with feeding problems. And in the end, I got discharged from hospital on the understanding that I would pump to feed my baby, with no information on how to pump or when to pump or any kind of help with that. Just sort of sent home with like, do you have a pump at home? And I was like, oh, I think I might have bought one, yes. And so they just sent me home with that, and Seth continued to drop weight and drop weight and drop weight and drop weight and drop weight until it got to the point where we were given 48 hours to get weight on him. And if we didn't gain in 48 hours, we were going back to hospital. So we formula fed him. And that was the point for me where I crashed, quite literally. Like that triangle of what motherhood had meant for me in those days was just gone. Like and I think I remember saying the first time I came to the Wellbeing group, I walked in the door and I burst into tears, getting emotional now.
Oh, mate. It was really difficult when you first came in, because you were like, I'm such a shit mum. I couldn't give birth properly. I couldn't feed properly. And, you know, and there's the guilt of carrying that around.
Yeah.
And we were all like, you really not. You really not.
And the thing is, it's like, my son's 20 months now, so these things are like a long time ago now, but it's like
quite raw though, 20 months.
It's a weird thing to pick it enough. It obviously.
Well, you don't often sit still with this stuff, do you? And talk about it. So when you do, it's all there.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
Totally.
We had because we'd had a section. The day after I had the section, the physiotherapist came to see us in the hospital and gave us the instructions on what you're supposed to do when you've had a section. And one of them was you can't lift anything heavier than 10 pounds. I was like, oh, well, my baby was 10 pounds.
How's this going to work?
So she said, oh, I suppose I can't really tell you not to lift your baby. I was like, well, as my husband has to leave every night, no. So the pain of actually lifting up my baby, anytime I had to lift him, was excruciating. It was physically draining. For almost 6 months, I think Seth was 6 months when I came.
He was so tiny, wasn't he?
But for 6 months I couldn't leave my house because I couldn't, with my section, because he was so heavy, I kept damaging the scar tissue, so I kept not healing properly. And because I was home alone, I had to lift him, had to look after him. I couldn't push him in a pram. The pram plus the baby plus the section was too heavy. I couldn't drive my car. Even if I could drive my car
seats.
I couldn't lift the car seats. Yeah. So I was literally stuck in the house with this, with this just going round and round and round and round. Don't and these are things I think that you don't really always think about. The midwife obviously was coming, but when they were coming, they were concerned about Seth's weight, so that was the main thing. And I remember, like, really, really clearly, her sat in the chair, in my house with the book open, and she's got her pen poised over the tick box, and she went, "You feel okay, don't you?"
Nothing like a leading question.
And I went, "Oh, well, yeah, okay." And tick the box,
What else
done.
are you meant to say to that?
Yeah, tick the box and you're done, that's it. You feel okay, don't you? And it was just really one of those scenarios where you couldn't, she didn't have time for me to go no. I don't think she was really wanting to open whatever can of worms that was there. And these things about how we speak to people and how we like understand someone else's narrative, how we get them to open up, especially when we don't know them and we're a health professional, and it's really tricky how you can do that with limited amounts of time. But certainly I think there are definite ways where that doesn't work. And I'm in Salford, so I come to Prestwich to go to this group because there isn't anything near me in Salford that would support people in my situation. I remember dragging myself out to a mum's group that's local to me, and I got there with all of these feelings that I already had about formula feeding because of everything that had happened. And I got there and I started to feed Seth with a bottle, and the group leader came over to me and she was like, "Oh, you're not breastfeeding?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I didn't think this was a breastfeeding group." She was like, "It's not, but we prefer our mums to be breastfeeding. So you might want to consider whether this is the right group for you." So yeah, oh yeah.
There's some crazy stuff.
Some crazy stuff goes on. So if you think that like you might have mums out there who are feeling this way, and then the types of groups they come into contact with routinely are not really in lots of ways synthetic to those needs.
As open as we are, it is still breastfeeding and bottle feeding will always, it's always going to be petrol and matches and baby-led weaning and how purist you are about baby. I know someone who was thrown out of a baby-led weaning group because they let them have a spoon. Just crazy stuff like that. And that's one of the bits of work that I think needs to be done, isn't there, about bottle feeding, breastfeeding, vaginal birth, C-sections. You've got you've got a subliminal message that if you have a C-section, you've somehow, it's not natural birth, and they actually say that, don't they?
It's not. I've actually sort of in my googling days when I was like up all night because I'm anxious, because I'm watching my baby, because I'm a terrible mum, because I haven't been able to do these things. So I'm watching him breathe all night, and if I do go to sleep, it's on the floor next to him. I can't go in, can't sleep anywhere else, and I'm sort of madly googling, like trying to figure out like what is going on here, like what's wrong. And then you come across all of these kinds of things on the internet where you can't say you birthed your baby if you had a C-section because it's not birth, or these horrendous threads where like people is just saying and it's mums saying these things to other mums, and
it's from their own insecurities, isn't it? When people post shit on Facebook or whatever and it's nasty, it's always an extension of them, but at the time you don't see that, do you? Because it's too busy hurting, so you just immediately right, I'm blocking that bastard. You just, sorry, I'm so terrible
and then,
swearing.
And time goes on,
baby of yours isn't sleeping. His first word's going to be now.
And time goes on, and those early experiences get further and further away, don't they? And they feel like they're a distant memory. Unless you're me yesterday, who had a full-blown panic attack for the first time in months and months and months and months and months. But then occasionally they just catch up with you again, and you think it's something that you've resolved, and you're kind of moving forward, and then all of a sudden, like actually maybe it's not as resolved as you thought it was, and these things do keep coming back to bite you, and that's why being told that at the end of 12 months you can't access the services for this thing, it's just kind of like, well, I'm 20 months in and had a full-blown panic attack yesterday, trying to parent a toddler on my own while I'm literally counting my own breath so I don't pass out. It's, while your chest is crushing in on you, and then the thing that you hear is, you can't access these things anymore because you're more than 12 months away from your birth.
I didn't seek help the first time till my first one was 18 months old.
Yeah.
So I would have been out of all of the realms of, I was out of the realms of being pushed up the list for talking therapy. I took my GP was amazing, and she fought for me to be pushed up the list, the same as if I'd sought help early.
Yeah.
But if she hadn't been like as on it as she was, that wouldn't. So it's definitely not something that ends at a year.
I was referred for talking therapy in November last year. I'm still waiting, and we're almost November this year. So there's just not enough resource, is there? And I feel really like I don't want to be bashing our health services, because it's definitely not what I'm about. But it's very difficult, because if you're in a situation where your needs aren't being met, and like we were saying, and you're responsible for it.
Sorry, I have to go. It's nothing
Okay.
you've said. Thank you.
Oh, it was lovely to meet you, Sasha's mum.
I have a name, it's Wendy.
I know. There's a really good Holly McNish poem about that, if you ever read it.
It's sort of difficult not to feel some sort of animosity about those services, isn't it? So, yeah.
They're not specialised enough either, because I think there is something different about treating kind of mums and dads, because you need a whole family dynamic, and we have like kind of mental health services, but it's all very like there isn't always childcare, and you know, well, you're going to have to leave your bed. Well, how am I going to leave my baby with somebody and CBT, which one size doesn't always fit all, and with the perinatal mental health services being rolled out, that's going to be for your high end. I'm not saying that anyone's need is more than the other, but it's going to be kind of people with long-standing mental health problems, so kind of people maybe diagnosed with schizophrenia or manic depression, or really high-end kind of safeguarding childcare services stuff. That's going to be the catch all, and then kind of the more everyday, well, everyone's an everyday mum, but the more everyday mums, that there's going to be kind of a real shortfall for our, you know, anxiety, depression, and those kind of things that wouldn't necessarily meet the threshold.
One of the things I would say, maybe from your point of view, is that peer support groups are challenging to set up, challenging to fund, they're challenged to keep going, because there is there are lots of people involved who at some point want to leave this journey behind as well. So you have mums who get to a point where they're like, I love what you do and I love this, but I'm actually ready to leave this section of my life in the past, you know, in the past, and move on and be in a different space. Whereas what I would really encourage you guys with is that you have the opportunity to create this online community, or a community where people can seek help. We had a mum say she would drive from North Wales. I suggested she came to you.
Detour.
Well, I think it's closer. But you know, that is way too far for your mum to be driving. But if she could access help online, then that is a beginning. And yes, okay, we would love all mums to get face-to-face and talking therapy and all of the stuff we would love as a dream service. That is not a reality in our current situation. Whereas what you are dreaming and coming up with and working on is a potential, like, genuine life save, because sometimes people can be stuck, and all people with mental health can be stuck in, but actually as a new mum you can find yourself stuck in way easier, I think, as well. So from your point of view, it for mums it's massively valuable. And you were saying about the PND chat on Twitter, and that's an example of that online community.
There's a few, isn't there, on Facebook, PND stuff, and some, you know, loads. I'm on quite a few of them, and there's birth trauma one, and you've got a whole community of like mums like us that have, through our own experiences, set up other stuff. There's, you know, you go to any conferences and stuff, and there's loads of like, and there's like Northern Ireland, there's all kinds of different people, isn't there, who set stuff up.
We've been looking at doing like live online meetups, haven't we? Trying to like reach people who can't come to the group, like Skype it.
Or even like a bit of a chat, because a lot of our kind of stuff is online, and one of the things about is us looking after ourselves, because I'm still processing kind of all my SHIT, but then also keeping and holding space for other people is massive.
Yeah.
And like I get mums messaging me all the time, and I might be having a really bad day, but I've made a commitment. I've got to kind of, you know, and I will reply when I have my breaks off social media because I'm going slightly crazy. I'll always reply to mums, because that feeling of being alone, and that when sometimes when we get mums who come in and they're just like, oh my God, I've been so alone. You could just weep with them, couldn't you? You could just totally weep
because you've been there and you remember it well.
I think as well, like there is a whole piece of work that could be done around like how we prepare people for motherhood.
Yes.
I remember going.
And fatherhood. We're very kind of
I remember going to those the antenatal classes, if you like, and the whole one on breastfeeding. The only thing that they really said that it's natural. It'll just happen naturally. Everyone can breastfeed. It'll happen naturally.
No one says about any bad things that can happen with breastfeeding at all, do they?
And then it doesn't happen for you. It doesn't happen for you, and then you go, oh, well, it's so natural. What's wrong with me? Like there's something wrong with me. It didn't happen to me. Yeah. The one that we went to about birth, about the birth experience, they literally were just like, oh, everybody has a normal birth. Oh, okay. So they wouldn't talk about, I can understand not talking about interventions and stuff in that session, but they were very clear that like, basically everybody has a normal birth. And I remember saying to my community midwife at the time, I was like, well, what happens if you don't? She was like, but you will. Yeah, but assuming that you don't, what happens? Like, what's the situation? She was like, well, you just will. You can't go in thinking you won't have a normal birth. No, that's not what I think. I just need to
have options.
Worst case scenario when you've got anxiety, don't you? You need to catastrophise in your head so you can plan for it.
So this kind of idea that we sort of embrace pregnant ladies and bring them into hospital, into an official environment, and these are the messages that they're given. I found that really difficult.
It's all very risk driven as well, isn't it?
I'm actually sorry to interrupt as well. I'm loving this discussion. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up for about 8:30, so about 5 minutes. Just quickly open up if anyone has any more questions they'd like to ask any of the speakers or anything else. We also have some information and pamphlets from the Association of Postnatal Illness, who sent some stuff over, so if anyone feels like grabbing some of those. And if we can just say a massive thank you to everyone as well for actually just coming, and thank you for everyone for sharing, and thank you for Kate for opening that up, because I think that was a fantastic way of just really bringing it back to home and just being very personal with it. So
yeah, and if anyone else wants to say something that's not spoken, I know people like me just go on, but you know, if anybody wants to, and I'm sorry, just hiding behind me now, so I came to be fair, I'm sat in front of you. But yeah, because so something has drawn everybody here. You know, you're coming on Wednesday night to talk about postnatal depression, so there's, you know, obviously something that draws people, so while we're all here, you might as well get involved. So screw you all.
Well, thank you all, and hopefully we'll be able to do something again in the future with more organisations involved, and that's what we're trying to look forward for. And Snowdrops, was it?
Yeah.
I think you guys emailed us today.
Yeah, to say I emailed you yesterday saying I couldn't come.
Yeah, and then you here. I was like, when you said that, I was like, oh, you're here. And
then I decided today that I probably could.
It's
been a very busy September, so I was just like, it's just not going to work. And then I was like, actually, it's not been as busy this week. So it's like, my husband came in, he's like, I was so tired. I was like, is this a good time to stay going out? So it's like, probably not, but fine.
No, great. It would be lovely to have something from you maybe next time as well.
I keep us linked up with that.
Absolutely,
Zeph and stuff.
Your social media.
Definitely. Tells you about everything.
Social media. The blessing and the curse of everything. I've got some